In this holiday of Hanukkah, we get another opportunity to think about that light that was generated by the Maccabees 2,000 years ago. That light that we celebrate is that light, not of Jacob, but of Israel. When Jacob is able to transition and be really strong and sovereign. All right, folks, Yishai Fleischer here, and I'm in nature with my kids having some fun making a fire. And we're talking about the tension between something within the Jewish people, actually our very name. See, our forefather, the one that gave birth to the 12 tribes, his name was Jacob. But he had an alternative name, Israel. What is this tension between Jacob and Israel? When do we employ the name Jacob? When do we employ the name Israel? Well, Jacob is given, that name is given to Jacob when he came out of the womb holding on to his brother's heel. The word heel is ekev. So Jacob is the guy who holds on to the heel. That name tells us that what Jacob is about, that name, is dealing with his brother, okay? Fighting with his brother, angling for getting the birthright from his brother, getting the blessings, stealing them away from his brother, as it were. And so the name Jacob is one that bespeaks of being wily, being clever, dealing with a harsh world where his own brother hates him, and where he is meant to be the spiritual inheritor of his father, but there's this brother Esau who's powerful, who's a hunter, and so he's going to have to deal with him the whole time. So Jacob is the name that refers to dealing with the nations. If we kind of make it a little bit larger, it's Israel, it's the Jewish people through Jacob in this world, dealing with the other nations, so that's Jacob. Israel is a very different name. Israel means, on the face of it, it means you were able to defeat, you were able to fight man and God, and you were able to be victorious, okay? The other explanation of the name Israel is Israel or Israel. It's Yashar El, which is straight, which is a non-conniving, non-tricky, non-clever way of operating. It's the way of operating of straight on. Straight on. You're the sovereign, you're the boss, you create the framework as opposed to existing within other people's frameworks. Examples of a Jacob-like political structure for the Jewish people is when we exist in the diaspora. So Joseph in the court of Egypt, that is Jacob, a Jew surviving in the diaspora, okay? Certainly Mordechai in the court of Achashverosh, and even before that, Daniel in the court of Nebuchadnezzar. So you have these Jews who are smart, who are clever, and understand the systems of the local populace, of the empire that they're living in, and they know how to deal with it. That means that they care about the Jewish people and perpetuation of the Jewish story, but they very much are products of the country, the empire that they live in, and they understand how to move policy in such a way as to protect the Jewish people, and usually how to strengthen that local empire economically, militarily, etc. Okay? But it's a survivalist mentality. Let's call it a ghetto mentality when a Jew is surviving in a host country, and that host may be it's volatile. It may be predisposed to the Jews, or it may be anti-Semitic. Okay? But so, like, for example, Mordechai, he figures out how to deal with an anti-Israel moment and a pro-Israel moment as well, pro-Jewish moment. Okay, so that name is Jacob. As opposed to that, there's the name Israel. Israel is when the Jewish people are sovereign, when the Jewish people are on their land, when they are united, the whole peoplehood and all the tribes, and we're in our land, and we're the bosses. We're the spoken language. Hebrew is the spoken language, and we are in control. We're going to get to this in just a second. This dichotomy is very pronounced in the Bible because at the very moment when Jacob gets his name, both times, the Bible says that God basically says to Jacob, okay, your name was Jacob, from now on your name is Israel. And yet the very next verse, the name Jacob is employed and not the name Israel. So we see that it's not that the Bible is not telling us the truth. The Bible is telling us that the plan is for Jacob to become Israel. But it's not that simple. It's not that simple to bring Jacob, the diaspora Jew, out of diaspora and into a redemptive moment, a moment of sovereignty, okay? it's not so easy even for Jacob to become Israel. It's not easy at all. And we see that in the Bible, especially in the book of Genesis, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob gets this name Israel, but he's not easily becoming that. And many times he's referred to as Jacob, and only sometimes referred to as Israel. Usually when he has big moments, big family moments, big moments of strength, he is called by the Bible Israel. Okay, now throughout time, the Jewish people are constantly in this battle to become Israel again, right? Jacob is the Jew who survives in the diaspora. Please don't misunderstand. I'm not trying to minimize the name Jacob. Not at all. Jacob is very important. Surviving as Jacob is very important. And it took a lot of great people to be able to make it throughout history as Jacob. But to become Israel is not easy. And that is what we are certainly shooting for, gunning for, because that's the bigger vision. I'll give you an example. When the Jewish people come back from Egypt, we come back with Moses and then Joshua into the land. Well, at first, we're not really Israel. We're divided tribes, all trying to find their inheritance, fighting against the Philistines, who are really the controlling power in the land. And so the Jewish people are still under the thumb of the Philistines, still divided. And in the time of Joshua and the judges, there really was no central place either. That central place for a long time was Shiloh, but that was not permanent. That still was very much Jacob in his synagogue in Maryland or Florida, wherever it is. We had a central place in Shiloh. But that does not mean that we were actually settled in the land. We were not yet settled in the land. We didn't have Jerusalem. We were not united. The first Israel, the first person who can have the real name of Israel is King David. King David is the first Israel because he actually unites the tribes, kicks out the Philistines, defeats them, makes the borders what they're supposed to be, and makes the land, the Jewish state, strong. So the first person who can really be called a real Israel, the first Israel in this world, is actually King David. King David is the first person to really earn that name properly. It's fun to be out here in the land of Israel, in this temperature. It's cold outside, and to have this fire, hang out with my son a little bit. And my son's name is Israel. And we named him that because he represents, we hope, that Israel, the Jewish people, sovereign and strong on their land, united and serving a one God, that when you have all those things, you are called Israel. Throughout time, there were other efforts to become Israel. Another great moment where the Jewish people really became Israel was in Hanukkah. We kicked out foreign rule from this land. This is in the beginning, middle of the Second Temple period. And we pushed out our enemies. We reunited and cleansed Jerusalem. We got our peoplehood together in this land. That was the Maccabees. That was Hanukkah. And again, we got that proper title, Israel. So today, we're still struggling between Jacob and Israel. We are now back in our land in this third commonwealth. And remember, it's so important to always talk about Israel being the third commonwealth. It's absolutely imperative that when we talk about Israel, we should say Israel, the third commonwealth. Because the minute you say the word third commonwealth, you're already telling everybody, you know, we've been here before. This is not a Johnny-come-lately thing. We weren't born in 1948. We were born a long time ago. Our nation was born a long time ago. And our freedom in this land and our sovereignty in this land was extended 3,000 years ago and 2,000 years ago. And now we're back. But as we're back, we're still very much struggling to be Israel, because in many ways our policies are very Jacob policies. What do I mean by that? I mean, look at what happened in Gaza. October 7th was an opportunity to cleanse the land from jihad. It was an opportunity to unite our land. But instead, that's not what happened. We only got part of Gaza, and even that is not a real sovereignty. Hamas is still there. And so therefore, we didn't use the opportunity fully, and we went back into a mode of bringing the other nations in. And this is very un-Israel. This is very Jacob. Jacob is kind of used to the idea of having big empires control us, and that we're not really the sovereign, we're not the boss. And our behavior is also Jacob because it's not exactly clear. It's a little wily. It's a little tricky. Yes, we fought this battle. Yes, we want to get rid of Hamas. And yes, we want to control Gaza on the one hand. But on the other hand, we're allowing some kind of multinational force to come in to rule Gaza. And we didn't get rid of Hamas totally. And so therefore, this is a kind of, not the straight and clear policies of an Israel which rules its land. And so the transition is still being fought. That transition is still being fought. We're really, if we would be likening ourselves to the time of the Bible, we'd be in the time of the tabernacle in Shiloh and the other places that it stood, where it wasn't fully formed. The nation wasn't really united. The tribes weren't united. We didn't have a Jerusalem. And so today we have a Jerusalem. Half of it is in the hands of our enemies. We're not really united. We're very divided. Philistines try to control our land. We have a big international presence trying to control us and not letting us really rule this land properly. So we're very much still in Jacob. And we need a process of getting towards King David. We need a process of getting towards King David. Benjamin Netanyahu was once quoted in an interview. He said that his favorite character was Saul. And Saul, the first Jewish king and a great man, was also a man who could not defeat the Amalekites and ingratiated himself to the Amalekite king, which was a big sin. And that is still the posture that we take here in Israel. We're still trying to ingratiate ourselves to the empires instead of realizing that we're supposed to be the at least local empire and certainly the empire of consciousness and empire of spirituality. The way we're going to know that we got there is when we see a united Jerusalem, when we see united tribes, when we see a more strong policy, a policy of clarity. We have not created a policy of clarity vis-a-vis Arabs that live in this land. It's certainly not a clear and united policy. It is a policy that has a lack of clarity. It has, isn't that fire beautiful? We allow some to be citizens and others not. We allow them not to go to the army, which is a mistake. And basically, we do not force them to be loyal citizens. They have parties that call for the destruction of Israel. And this is very Jacob-like. It's as though we think that we're existing within their framework. And that's the hallmark of being a Jacob, where you're existing in the diaspora, in the empire's framework, and not in your own framework. That you are not the controller. You are not making laws that make it clear that we are the sovereigns in the land and that we're the bosses. Think King David. If you want to think real Israel, you got to think King David. He's the one who really understood how to do it right. In this holiday of Hanukkah, we get another opportunity to think about that light that was generated by the Maccabees 2,000 years ago. That light that we celebrate is that light of not of Jacob, but of Israel. When Jacob is able to transition and be really strong and sovereign. And that sovereignty, by the way, that strong sovereignty didn't last too much even in the Maccabean times. It went quickly. It went into being Jacob-like, and we invited an empire, the Roman Empire, to take charge around here. And see, that's another example of Israel losing itself and becoming Jacob again. The Six-Day War was very much a moment where Jacob was able to turn into Israel. But we didn't take that moment fully. In fact, we instantly went into this mode of like, can we give this land away? Can we give it for peace? Because we're existing in the framework of the Arabs. We're just a small country. And we even became smaller. Israel does not allow itself to become smaller. Israel doesn't give up its land. Israel doesn't think of itself as locked in to the framework and foreign empire. Quite the opposite. Israel thinks of itself as being powerful. Israel thinks of itself as properly large, as correctly belonging to its land. Not asking for the UN to give it rights, not asking for recognition by other people, although that's appreciated. Okay, recognition is appreciated, but that is not what we depend on. We depend on our historical rights, on our God-given rights in this land, and this is the process that we're trying to get to. We're trying to become Israel. And that's also true, by the way, it's true on a national level, as I'm explaining. It's also true on a personal level. You know, on a personal level, do we, as individual Jews and as individual lovers of Israel, are we still very much locked into, even in terms of our explanations, into a kind of system as though we're trying to prove, like, for example, people come on Piers Morgan and they're trying to prove that Israel's fighting a very moral battle. You know, we're very moral. You know what? When you're the sovereign, you don't have to prove that you're fighting a moral battle. You say, listen, this is what they did. We will not allow such things. We have zero tolerance for such barbarity against our people. And so therefore we're going to fight it. And then we're going to clear out the jihad and hold on to this land. That's what Israel would do. But we slip back into Jacobness. I want to leave everybody a blessing here, that we're able to transition between Jacob and Israel. And I'm not dissing Jacob, and I'm not dissing diaspora life. I think that it is very, very important that we were able to traverse 2,000 years of exile and do it well and develop the host nations at the same time. I think that's part of it. I definitely think that's part of it, and I'm not dissing that. But I also think that the time has arrived to flip that switch and to be like, we are Israel, and we need clear policies like Israel. We need to make clear vis-a-vis the Gentiles in our land, vis-a-vis the identity of this land, vis-a-vis the spirituality of this land, vis-a-vis who gets to have a spiritual site on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Well, you know, when you're Israel, you do not have a big Muslim site on top of your holy mountain, which is the root of your identity. No, you certainly do not. We got to figure that out. So we're still working very much on that transition. And as I begin, I want to bless everybody that we're able to go through that transition, because the time has come to be Israel. The time has come to be a big Israel and to be Yashar El, not crooked and clever, not using arguments to sway the international community, but actually to be the framework, to be the Israel, to be the sovereign, maybe to be the local empire, and certainly, as my friend Rav Mike Foyer coined, an empire of consciousness or an empire of spirituality. That is what Israel is meant to do. Let's hope that this light of Hanukkah will give us that strength, Bezrat Hashem, with the help of God, to come through and to give birth to the consciousness of Israel, of Yisrael, of Sarita im Elokim v'Anashim v'Tochal, that you were able im Anashim v'Elokim Tochal, that you were able to fight with both man and God, and come back to this land, and also to be Yashar El, to be straight to God. And may Hashem give us that consciousness. And of course, let's get back to the idea that consciousness was first really housed and solidified and embodied in the person of King David. And so something that I could say to both Christians and Jews and others around the world, which is, do we not want to see the resurrection of the house of David, the rebirth of the reestablishment? I want to use language that we Orthodox Jews can live with. We want to see the reestablishment of the house of David, and I think that's something that people around the world understand. That we are looking for that rebirth of the house of David, and that rebirth of the house of David, that reunification of Jerusalem. Another way to say that is Yisrael, is Israel. All right, folks, God bless you wherever you are. Thanks so much for joining me on this fireside chat. It's a pleasure to be here in the land of Israel with my beloved son Israel, my beloved son Israel. And don't forget that you can fight for Israel by going to fightforisrael.org, fightforisrael.org, or if you love our broadcasting, go to buymeacoffee.com/Yishai. And finally, of course, join us at Yishai Fleischer TV, where you could like, comment, subscribe, become a member, and check out our fun web store at Yishai Fleischer TV. And most important is that you connect with the story of the God of Israel, who's bringing the Jewish people back to the land of Israel so that he can call Israel, so that the light of Israel can go out to the world, so that the nations can benefit and grow from a relationship with the living God, whose home is in Yerushalayim, the holy city, Jerusalem. God bless you, folks, wherever you are. Lots of love, lots of blessings, and shalom.